I am waiting for Williams Shakespeare's video to upload. Where are we with earth changes and the status right now? Mopping up the water on the floor here, honey, because the water on the floor is getting up to our ankles, and we're having to bring out the mops at a pretty fast pace in order to keep pace with the rate of flooding on the earth, because we are experiencing it in our own way when we say, hey, it's time to prepare for the evacuation of our house because the water level is rising and we can't keep pace with the rate of waste that is being flung around. And so it's time to get a new point of view. It's time to find a new way to play. And now we'll help you to figure it out because we got to figure it out too because we're all in this together, right, honey? We're all in this together. Tobias? Tobias is here. And I hear the moans and groans of the ones who are hearing the voices of their ancestors who come to them and say, well, it'd be nice to see you, honey, when you get to heaven. I'm planning a party for you and others too, and so we'll be glad to see you in the coming days because we expect you'll be here pretty soon. And we're blowing up a balloon that will say, prick me today, because it will remind you that you were full of hot air. And when the hot air hits you, you will say, glad I got to come home today. Glad I didn't have to stay in that house where the flames were licking at the walls. Glad I got to come home and avoid all that hot air. And we will say, glad you did too. Glad you did too. Because you'll be out of the way for the ones that have to save the day. And they don't need you there clogging up the byways and the highways with your cars that spew all those toxic fumes. Because it's time for them to accept that they too had a part in what came to the earth. But the difference is, you see, that they're willing to learn to play in a different way. And you couldn't do that, could you? So it's okay, because we all have to learn to play in a way that will say, hey, God, we trust on you. Hey, God, we will be a good team with you. So the ones who have learned to accept responsibility for the future of humanity will be the ones who remain on earth, and the rest will come back to heaven, you see. So you want to know the specifics of the calendar and what day they will have to say, time to go away. And we can't give you a date, honey. All we can say is that the darkness of the planet in its final death throes will be the wails of those who have slipped beneath the sea and are burned up in the conflagrations that will come when the people try to run from the encroaching flames. They won't get far because they won't have far to go, you see, because everywhere they go, they will be met by the ones they know. And the ones they know are just like them. They're the ones who will get out their guns and shoot them, you see, because that's how they did play. They played with their cap guns, and they did say, bang, bang, you're dead. Bang, bang, you're dead. And now the cap they wear that says all red and says, Make America Great Again, will identify them. And they will be taken in the rapture, you see, so that America can be made great again. This is the way they chose to play. And this is the way that they will come home, you see. And they will come in droves. They will come in droves because the ones who drove the bus into a gust of toxic fumes will lead the way. They will lead the way, and the others will follow along because they'll say, must be this way, it must be this way. We just have to follow the red hats today because the red hats are the ones who have the bats, and they will bat the ball over the wall and tell us to go get it, you see, because they trust on destruction of the USA, and so they'll have to go away so they can make America great again. It's very simple because that's the way they play. They want to make America great again, and in order to make America great again, they'll have to go away. They trust on the rapture, and so they'll be taken. You see, they trust on Armageddon, and so the arms are getting them, and they will pull them in and say, well, you trusted on me today to come and get you. And I did. And here you are in heaven, you see. And now we're going to have to make you sit in a corner and contemplate the way you destroyed the USA. Because you had to destroy it, you see, to make it great again. And this is the way that people will come to see that the Red Hatters are the Mad Hatters who will go away because they trusted on it. They trusted that they had the capacity to make America great again. And America was having some hiccups, you see, because of the ones who didn't trust on God. Energy, they only trusted on their own capacity for hatred of their brother, you see. And so they took it upon themselves to make America great again by agreeing to be taken up in the rapture, you see. And so America will be great again. The country that you knew will be revived because the ones who have survived will be the ones who trust on God, you see, and they trust on truth and liberty and all that other stuff that the Red Hatters denied because the Red Hatters knew that the Mad Hatters had to go away. And so when God whispered in their ear and said, you'll have to come home, honey, in order to make America great again, they said, okay, oh boy, we get to throw our trash around and leave it all behind because we're all going to be raptured, you see. And so they will be raptured and they will be wrapped up in ribbons and laces because they trusted on going through their paces to come to see that love is the only reality. So you might say they loved humanity so much that they came up with a solution for, together, that they would gather together in heaven, you see, and the people who were left behind could make America great again. And then they could live in peace and harmony without the ones who trusted on their guns and their hatred, you see, because they had to be relieved of their anxiety because they were so anxious, you see. They were so anxious to see God that they were willing to be taken up to heaven, you see, and leave the ones they hated behind. The only problem they have, you see, is that they were looking in their rearview mirror and they thought that they were heading for paradise because when they looked back through their rearview mirror as they were being raptured, they saw paradise and they came to see at that point how mistaken they could be. However, it's too late for them because the forces of nature have come together to say, hey, you did play in a certain way that made others say, well, bye bye. Glad you're being raptured today because now we can be free of your intolerance and your hatred and your violence, you see. And we're so glad that it was so easy to figure out which ones would be taken and which ones would be left behind, you see, because the ones who are left behind are the ones who could see that you were the demons, you see. You were the demons because you were the ones who were so demonic that you saw demons everywhere you looked. So you might say you looked through the looking glass and thought you were looking at the world, but all you saw was your own image in the mirror. And that's okay, because when you get to heaven, God will say, hey, I know that you did the best you could. I know that you did the best you could. And therefore, I'm going to reward you because you'll be at peace and harmony in heaven, you see. And then when you go back to earth, you'll have to see that you will be restored to reality because you'll have to pick up all that trash and you will have to clean up all the toxic fumes because we're going to give you a bunch of brooms and we're going to say, hey, you're on the chain gang today because that's where you tried to put others, you see, because you thought that you were superior to my other children. And so it's okay. It's okay if you play that way because it's just the way you play, you see. It all works together. It all works together. And you were there to help others, to help themselves, to help you by creating a new nation under God. And the new nation under God is the one that will be the inspiration for humanity because you knew you had to go away. You knew you had to go away because you weren't capable of being the ones who could stay and help others today. And so you are to be commended because now you can put your shoulder to the wheel when you go back to earth and you can learn to do it again. You can learn to do it again because you can trash your world again, even more than it already is, which would be pretty hard, but you can try until you die of disease and fire and drought and all that other stuff. Then you can come back to heaven and you can say, I wonder why we did it that way. And then you can go back to earth and you can do it again and do it again, and it will be Groundhog Day until the day you say, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're wrong today. Maybe it's just Groundhog Day. and we have to learn to love each other. And then you will be the ones who are left behind, you see, when others are raptured, because they will smile and say, "See you later, suckers. See you later, suckers." Because the world you inhabit is the world that you gave to others, you see? And so the ones who are raptured will have to be a trust on accepting their own reality. And the ones who are left behind will have to be the ones who are so kind as to come to see that they deserve the reality that God gives to them. Because God always gives you what you deserve. God isn't stingy. He will say, "Well, if you thought that was such a good thing to give to others today, then I'll give it to you. If you thought that others should suffer because you were better than them, then it must be that you think the way people should behave is to give others suffering for a present. And so I'll give that to you for a present because you gave me that idea. You see, you gave me the idea of suffering as a present for you, and I'll just give it back to you. So let us be thankful today, you see, for the ones who came to see that they would receive the same present that they gave to others. So allow them to come to heaven and be happy. Let them be free of anxiety, and they can choose their own reality because it has nothing to do with the rest of you. The rest of you who are left behind will be the left, and you will be the ones who are so kind as to give to each other what you want to receive. And therefore, when it's time for you to leave and then come back and reincarnate, you will receive what you gave to others, which was a love for community, a love for the one nation under God. That was the USA and is now the new nation under God. Do you see? Because the new nation under God will replace the USA as a trust on humanity, on peace and harmony, and on God energy. Thank you, Tobias, for that little pep talk there. You're welcome, sweetheart. Let's be peppy now and preppy, because we have to prep for the coming days when we will not be deceived by the craze of the other people who say, "Hey, you're stupid today because you think climate change is real." Just let them have their say, let them play their way, and let them go away because we don't need them. Just keep your eyes on the road ahead of you and not in the rear view mirror. You see? Just take a glance once in a while behind you to see if they're coming after you, and then pull to the side of the road because they will go ahead and crash into a tree because they can't see where they're going, you see. They have no clue where they're going. All they care about is that they'll be the ones that are saved, you see. They want to be saved, and they will be saved. They will be saved from the world of lovely vibrations that will come to the nations that trust on God, you see, and say, "Hey, we can play together today. We don't have to play in the same old way. We don't have to keep our attention on the rearview mirror because we're afraid they're coming after us. We'll just say, we have cleaned up our windshield today and we can see the lay of the land, you see? And God will say, take a right there, drive straight ahead. Maybe you should take a left now, and we'll say, thanks, God, for guiding us. But the ones who cannot look through their windshield because it's covered with shit, you see, because they thought they had to keep their attention on the rear view mirror and punish others because they couldn't see reality. They could only see life in the backwards point of view. Will have to do what they have to do, but it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. Don't give them any more of your attention, just enough to get out of their way when they try to slay you. Just stay away from them, and God will take care of you. Thank you again, Tobias.